And yet, though, you use the phrase mass migration, and I think most of our viewers here would agree that that's a perfectly reasonable term to use, and yet there's people in your own party room who say, oh, no, you shouldn't be using that. Senator Andrew McLaughlin has said that. I think Andrew Bragg has said that. I think even, Paul Scar, the immigration shadow, has hinted around that. How do you create this sort of cohesive policy where some people are talking about values tests and the other side is saying you can't even really define this as a problem, particularly as now there's rumors of a split where, some moderate teal types might even go and form their own breakaway organization?
Yeah, look, I've been a sports person all my life and a team player, and I understand the importance. If you want to win the grand final, then you've got to behave like a team. And what is disappointing is some of the behaviour of colleagues where there's a tendency to throw your colleagues under a bus. It's not a good look as a coalition to the Australian people. We've all got to get on board. The facts remain when it comes to mass migration, which is what it is, mass migration. When there's more people in your country, there is more congestion. There is more pressure on our infrastructure, on our services, hospitals, schooling. As I said, the government's not meeting demand for homes in our country. So these are all facts, and it is due to mass migration. So, we need to be able to execute our arguments with conviction and with the facts coherently, and not sit back and be led by focus groups and polling. We need to set the agenda. We need to control the narrative, just like we did with the referendum, to say, look, we've got Australia's best interests at heart, and this is how we're going to demonstrate to you how we're going to fight for you. So,
Jacinta, what would you like to see the immigration policy be? Would you like to see an absolute stopping of immigration for the time being, a brief pause, a significant reduction? The coalition went with a kind of 25% reduction at the last election, which nobody was interested in or understood. What would you like to see as the immigration policy if it were down to you?
Sure. Well, I think, to approach it in a common sense way, we need to look at this term, how many more people is Labor going to bring in? And if those are large numbers, I think we do seriously need to consider pausing in particular areas. You've got temporary, you've got permanent migrants who are around, looking for refugee status, who family reunion, skilled. But we need to also look at the skilled migrants in areas that we need them, like for building homes, for instance, those that have those skills. But the regions, the Northern Territory, places like that, we have shortfalls across various different areas in terms of the need for skilled migrants. So it's about being smart as well and ensuring that we are sending newly arrived migrants to places like regional Australia and like the Northern Territory to help those economies and build in the regions. So,
What about values? What about the type of people we should be bringing into the country?
Look, absolutely. They have to demonstrate that they are willing to adopt Australian values and to lead with those values. We don't need any more division in our country. I mean, we've seen what occurred on the footsteps of the Opera House, and that hatred and the threat of violence toward certain parts of our community from those who ultimately we opened our doors to them, as refugees in this country, and they should be adopting our values. There's no two ways about it, and we shouldn't be soft on that.
So how do you test for that? Because there's been different talk at the visa stage, at the citizenship test stage. I mean, what it suggests is that you talk about preferencing people who come from countries that share democratic systems of government? Would you think about a change to the kind of the universalist migration approach that Australia has taken?
Well, I think we do need to consider whether we seriously do want to be taking in individuals from places like Gaza. We need to seriously consider that. We do need to be vetting, I believe, at the visa stage of individuals. As it stands, the Labor government's not doing a good enough job at vetting those who are coming to our country in the first place, and we need to strengthen that. And I would go further as to say, yeah, the citizenship stage as well, to be sure.
Rita?
Annika Wells was on Sky News earlier this morning and floundered hopelessly, trying to justify the extraordinary expenditure from New York, Paris, Thredbo, Adelaide. She's been everywhere on the taxpayers' dime. And the Prime Minister had a response to that on the ABC just not long ago. Let's have a listen to that.
The plan was that the Minister was going to go on your plane, but was caught up with the Optus 000 problem here in Australia, then had to make a last-minute booking to get to New York. You or your office would have had to approve that, is that right? Did you?
Of course.
So you did approve this?
Of course.
You thought 34 grand for a flight was okay?
Well, we spoke. I didn't get all the receipts, David.
Oh, well, he didn't get all the receipts. There you go. He was also asked about the Thredbo trip where she had her family with her, and the taxpayers picked up the bill there. What's your view on that? She says it's within the guidelines. The Prime Minister says it's within the guidelines. Is that enough? Is that the end of the story, or does this deserve greater scrutiny?
Look, I think, this is demonstrative of the way in which Labor like to spend the taxpayer dollars and treat it like a slush fund for themselves. I mean, why couldn't she do her meetings via Teams with the UN, for example? Those exorbitant costs that were involved, she's now having to come clean to the Australian people on that. It doesn't pass the pub test, as far as I'm concerned. And, Australians are concerned as it is already. But this goes to the fact that they like to spend. I mean, they spent $500 million on a referendum. We know, over $90 million on a new bomb website. This government is at a 40-year high when it comes to spending, all-time high. And it is to that broader question as well. But absolutely, the Prime Minister, bless his cotton socks, he'll always stick up for his own team, but he needs to hold them accountable at the same time because he is the Prime Minister. The buck stops with him and the Australian people expect better.
And just briefly before we go, can the Coalition win the next election? Will Susan Lee still be the leader? What is the future of the Liberal Party?
Look, we absolutely can win the next election as long as we demonstrate that we are not Labor light, that we can lead with conviction and not being fear-led like, I think we were toward the end during the lead up to the last federal election. We were being led by focus groups and polling as opposed to saying to the Australian people, these are the policies that we want to deliver on behalf of you to demonstrate that we have your interests at heart demonstrate to the Australian people ultimately. At the moment, I believe that Susan needs to be given the opportunity to execute those arguments when it comes to energy policy, where we land with immigration, to demonstrate to the Australian people that she is of leadership material in that way that can go to the federal election. And we need to, as a coalition, start behaving like a team. Get behind one another, get around one another, boys and girls, just like the footy field, and get out there and, have those tough fights. And there is a wonderful freedom with being able to be on the backbench and do that. I am enjoying my time on the backbench, as I know others are. I'll fight from any position, obviously, because I love this country, and we've got to get out of the situation that we're currently in. We really do. Hear, hear. Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, thanks so much for coming on Outsiders, and we'll speak again soon.